Aloha. Welcome to the Walking in Aloha, Let's Talk Story podcast. We're so glad to have you here. Et como mai. Now here's our podcast host and award-winning author, Michelle.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. We are here where we are bringing powerful voices that rise, stories that heal, and leaders walking boldly in their calling. I am Michelle Ibalarosa Kawano, speaker, author, and creative coach. Today's guest embodies reinvention in CJ Janzen, I hope I said that correct, is an international keynote speaker, reinvention resilience coach, best-selling author, and chief well-being officer. She has been featured on CTV News, CBC News, City News, and Rogers TV. That is a lot. So incredible. And she is the certified first runner-up of season 4 of the Next Top Speaker, standing out amongst over 5,000 applicants worldwide, including me. Including me. Amazing. She is also the creator of Disabilities, and I love the way that you put that. Disabilities Unleashed, and a powerful advocate for choosing joy in the tempest of adversity. CJ, welcome to the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. I am so honored to have you here. Before we start, I know I said a lot, but please tell us more about yourself and how did you get into all of this and all of these places? So incredible. I love it.
It starts with a little bit of a sad story, I guess. In 2012, my life went from scuba diving in the tropics 2 to 4 times a day to getting what I call the most wicked birthday gift ever. Because something had changed within me. Something was not the same. Yeah. I got a wicked virus, and that virus left me 80% bedbound, and at the time it was even more, and I could barely speak more than 2 to 4 words at a time. It's taken me years to regain this ability to speak clearly and concisely without excessive amounts of brain fog. It's still there, so you may notice me look for a word or two or struggle to find the right word. That part is called aphasia, and that happens when I'm more exhausted. But I have spent the last nearly 14 years rebuilding and trying to share with other people how I went about it, what the process was. And last year I had one of those epiphany moments, one of those God-given moments where I finally put into words, I created an acronym called GRACE, and that GRACE encompasses everything that I do now.
Wow, that is so good. That is scary, but like how you said, you went from all of this to something else. Like, how does anybody prepare for something like that? You just can't. You can't prepare for anything like that, right? That's so scary. So I'm just like, I heard your story before, but in my time right now, I just feel like a little bit more shaken by what you just said. Reason being is because I just found out that I have a brain aneurysm. Like, you don't prepare for stuff like that. You're like, what? And so we just
You
started.
know,
We just started. I don't want to be like I'm gonna cry already. But you know what I mean? It's hard.
I do. And nobody who has ever walked into a doctor's office and heard the C word, nobody who's been told that they have ALS, nobody who's been told that they have Alzheimer's, nobody's prepared to hear that. And what I do is really just work with individuals to make the transition from whatever I call it DIS. I have like my coaching company name is Beyond DIS because
Mm.
that's disruption, disability, diagnosis, but also disenfranchisement, disappointment. And there's a lot of things that happen in life that change how we view ourselves, change how we see the world dramatically. Like all we have to do is think of pre-COVID, post-COVID, you know,
Yeah.
how big of a change did that make in our world? And it was massive. And when we're talking about just a singular event in a single person's life, it's just as life-changing. It's just can be just as devastating. So how do we rebuild? How do we find new passion and purpose? How do we find our way back to figuring out, not living in the was a paramedic, I was a truck driver, I was a master scuba instructor. How do I change it to I am CJ and what is CJ now? This was a major change that I had to go through. And it was really important for me to rediscover what I was capable of, how to find joy again, how to create new passion and purpose, how to find community. Like Mike, I guess a question to reach back to you is, have you found any support groups for people who have had aneurysms?
I actually, through the next top speaker, that is how I did. But it was just such a shocker because, like how you said, who are you? Like what you do. I found out like the day before or something. Uh, yeah, the day before that we went on. And so I was like, am I doing this? You ask yourself those questions, right? Like, am I still doing this? Can I still do this? You know? And I was like, I didn't prepare all this time to not. So I'm going to do it. And so I did. And I needed to stay focused on what I already had written because I'm not going to change everything now because I'm freaking out, you know? And so I did. And as the day went on, because it was a long day, we sit with all the different speakers over what is it? We go from 100 to 50 and you were all the way to the first runner up. So yeah, you know how long it went. And I sat here and I was here, but not here. And I was writing and I was listening. And then there was another speaker and she was speaking on her talk and she mentioned brain aneurysm. And I was like, what? And I started listening. And through that speech, I was like, I need to get in contact with this person. And I think that is the most important thing that we need to do as speakers is to realize that we don't know who's listening and at a time and place, right? That they need to hear it. She didn't know. I didn't know that she was going to be on. And how would that even happen, except for God, I believe, that out of all these people, that it went all the way down and we sat in the room with just 10 people. And in that 10, she was one of them. So, yeah. And through her, she connected me with other support groups and things like that. As I looked into the other support groups, I kind of stepped back because I was like, this is a little scary because you see what they've already been through. And I'm like, maybe I'm not ready to see all that yet. So yeah, I actually have that group, but I'm kind of like, let's take baby steps. Let's take those baby steps because yeah, they've already gone through the surgeries and they already, maybe theirs are bigger or whatever, but I didn't want to scare myself into anything, so I had to step back from that. But yeah, having that
And
support.
that is true. I mean, part of finding community is maybe finding one or two voices within that room and
Mhm.
connecting with those one or two voices instead of getting overwhelmed with a lot of different things. When I was in AA, I saw so many different ways of getting sober, so many different methodologies, so many different points of view. Somebody that I looked up to, by the end, I couldn't stand because I needed sort of his absolute, this is the only way to do things at the beginning. But by the
Mhm.
time I started to feel secure in myself and started to trust myself, my way is the only way didn't work for me anymore. Like, I would see him out in the community and all of a sudden he would say, I haven't seen you in meetings. You're not giving back to, excuse me, it's not your right to tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing with my
Yeah.
sobriety. And I think that's an important thing to know, is that as part of this grace is that we do have to connect with community, but it has to be the right community. A man who goes to a hair salon every day is eventually going to get his hair cut, right? If you are an alcoholic and you hang around with the people that are more likely to relapse, you're also more likely to relapse. So finding that sense of community, finding the safe people is definitely part of that connecting with community. So whether that's your community of faith who can love you and help you get to appointments and stuff, maybe that's one part of it. But
Mhm.
honestly, sometimes they can't necessarily fully understand what you're going
Yeah.
through. And we have to be forgiving of that. There's always somebody out there that will become sort of the person that can help hold you up when you're too weak to stand on your own. So whether that's just God, or whether that is, a friend, a member from church, even a pet can sometimes be the only solace that somebody needs. It really comes down to, what works for you.
Yeah.
I don't know since this has happened, what have you found to be the most effective things for you?
It's funny because I always see how God works in ways it is always so timely, so perfect to what's going on right now. Being on with you, knowing that you sing, knowing that music is part of everything you do, right? Just in the last, I want to say 2 days, right? And that's why I say it's always so timely. It's always like right before I get on with the next guest, and it's exactly what they do. And it's not like I go and find it, it's the way that it is. So, my last guest, she was talking about breath and breathing and how we get back to our just breathing. Because sometimes when we're so anxious, we're really not breathing. We breathe so shallow, or we're holding our breath, or we're clenching our teeth, and we're not really breathing, right? Remember, I was talking about, all right, everyone. So we're just mentioning how the car was going to come in. I'm going to pause for just a sec. It's going to make noise.
Are they able to hear me in the meantime? Okay, so one song I recently had a major loss in that my father passed away. And so that's one of those major disruptions I talked about. But one of the songs that got me through that whole process is called I've Got Joy. And I kept playing it over and over again. And the way the main chorus goes is, I've got joy down in my soul. I've got joy down in my soul. I've got joy, 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 I've got joy in my soul. When I wake in the morning, I feel the sunshine on my face. I clothe myself with gratitude. That's the dawn of a brand new day. Flowing like a river, washing over everything. Nobody can steal my sunshine, but everyone can help me sing. 'Cause I've got joy down in my soul. I got joy down in my soul. I've got joy, 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 I've got joy in my soul. And it goes on from there. I'm a little breathless today, so it's not my best singing, but it
That was
is
absolutely
so
beautiful.
much fun. It is such a fun song.
That was so good. But, like I was saying, when my last guest was on talking about breath, I was at work and just so happened someone comes in and they have the word ha on their shirt. And ha means breath in Hawaiian. So aloha is alo, which is face to face. When they come in and they give a hug, it's not really like a hug in Hawaiian. They put their noses together, right? And that is how they greet each other in the old Hawaiian way. And they breathe. So they take in each other's breath. And that's ha, aloha. And so when I saw that she had ha on her shirt, but under that she had the scripture, Job 33. And in Job 33:4, it talks about, I'm going to look it up because I don't like to quote scripture and it's wrong. And look, it's still right here on my phone. I didn't have to look it up. It says, "For the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life." And I was like, wow. And it was just before I had my last guest on, right? And she was talking about breath. And she was like, "That is so good," and I'm like, I don't know. God does that. Like I said, the past 2 days, having you come on, not like I was looking for it, knowing that I was going through what I was going through. I was like, I'm going to watch this movie. It was called Tina on Angel. And because it was like, she's like a choir teacher and all this stuff. And I miss being in the choir. So I'm going to go watch it. In that movie, they talk about, like not talk about, but in that movie, during the course of the movie, there's a song and it is well with my soul. And I'm like, right. So now I'm bawling in this movie because I know the song and I know the story. I go and I see I Can Only Imagine 2 just last night. And I don't know anything about that movie. I mean, I seen the first one, but I didn't know that in that movie, once again, it is well with my soul is in that movie. I'm like, I told my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was on Tina. And I was crying and, so I was like, oh my gosh, I know what the Lord is telling me, that I'm okay. Let it be okay, and I'm in my room last night and I'm scrolling through my phone and I hear this song this girl is singing, and it's one of the Angel like commercials or previews or whatever of their show, and she's singing, but the lyrics got me. The lyrics got me because she was singing things that people wouldn't be singing about, but her voice is so nice, and she's like, "Thank you, Lord, for never showing up when I need you." Those kind of, like that. But her voice is so nice. And I'm like, the lyrics was like, what? And so she was like, praise God for the hell of it. No matter what, right? You're just praising God anyway. And then I'm watching this clip and then they sing, "It is well with my soul."
That is
3 different times, 3 different movies or shows or whatever. And it is like, I understand it is well with my soul. And I'm literally saying, I know already. I know it is well. It is okay. I'm fine. I'm fine, right? I am saying I'm fine. In bed, I'm crying, holding my phone, listening to this song, and I'm telling God, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I know you're there. I'm good. I'm fine. My watch buzzes, and it's one of my Bible app watch, things. And it says, I had to take a picture because I always tell people nobody would believe me if I don't take pictures. And it literally says, I don't know if you can see this, but see how dark it is? And see my wrist in the dark. Okay, so that's my wrist in the dark. It says, God doesn't need your strength. He needs your surrender. I was like, and coming on here today, knowing you were going to be on today, and I'm going to cry, I'm sorry, but hearing your story, knowing how much you've been through, yet you are doing everything you're doing. But at a point, you had to come to that. And now I'm sitting here going, I get you. And I thank you that I am going to be on right now. I think
I
I need to
think,
hear your grace.
yeah, I think that for myself in my own story, as a child, I suffered abuse, and I also watched my mom die of cancer over 13 years from the age of 3 when she passed away when I was 16. And I was her caregiver. I, did the bedpans, held the barf buckets, all of those things. And when my mom passed away, I had been semi-religious. Our family sort of went through phases um, during my mom's passing, but the family had turned more towards God towards the end again. At around the time of the funeral, somebody in that church told me, well, your mom died because she didn't pray enough or she wasn't good enough. And as a child, I turned from church and from God. And though I lived in a Christian way, wouldn't go to a church. Didn't want anything to do with it really. And by getting sick, what happened is I made it back to Canada through there were so many God-given moments. It's hard to describe how many there were. But if I hadn't have gotten sick, I would never have come back to Canada. If I had never come back to Canada, I would be dead from alcoholism by now. There's like zero chance I would still be alive right now. If I hadn't have come back to Canada sick, I wouldn't have attended my first AA session. If I hadn't have gone to that AA session, I wouldn't have made it through the doors of the little church that was beside where we had our meetings. I wouldn't have gotten baptized. I wouldn't have made the connections I needed to have the support people around me to get me to various appointments in other parts of Ontario to see some of the specialists. I wouldn't have made certain friends who connected me to a Mennonite home, seniors home, who then, after I ended up in a women's shelter, took me in for 8 months until I could get into government housing. I would not have stayed sober. I would not have everything that I do right now without all of that love and support. I wouldn't be alive. And what I see is God basically had to take me, and like certain trees that get pruned right back, I had to be pruned back to nothing so that I could have a clean slate. I didn't, most of the friends that I had that were initially there when I came back, they disappeared. I couldn't come out and play anymore. I wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't out drinking with them anymore. My sound sensitivity, my light sensitivity, my scent sensitivity meant that going out in public more often than not was just painful. There was not a lot of joy that went with it. And they didn't understand why I always had earplugs on or the big construction headphones. Why at the beginning, I was actually wearing welding glasses, that the light sensitivity was so bad. I just couldn't tolerate being out for very long. And I've had to rebuild back from that. It's took 2.5 years to get a diagnosis. There are still times, and I know this is strange, where I doubt, am I really sick? Then I go out and do something, and then I pay for it. And then I go, yeah, I'm still sick. It's sad, but funny, because so many doctors told me, oh, your labs come up normal. Other than the fact that you can't speak, you can barely walk, you're light, sound, and sense sensitive, and you have these very elevated levels of non-specific inflammation in your body, right? Other than that, you're perfectly fine. And they tried to tell me I was a head case. They tried, as they do with many people. So whether you're experiencing Crohn's or whether you've got endometriosis or whether I have what's called myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's a neuroimmune disease. Whether you have fibromyalgia or POTS, so many of these non-apparent disabilities were just treated as anxiety patients or mental health patients, when there's actually physical illness underlying all of these things. And it's been proven, like unfortunately, through autopsies that there are definitely physical illnesses at play. And I guess that's part of why I encourage you to connect with community, so that you can sort of, when somebody else has walked a path before you, they can say, hey, you can avoid this trip, you can avoid this log, you can avoid whatever the obstacle is. And often, sadly, it's the doctors. And not because they're necessarily malicious, but especially with more rare diseases or female problems, they tend to not be well educated. So what happens is we become so involved and so knowledgeable about what our illnesses are that we can intimidate the doctors. And they put up their roughs and they go, hey, I'm the doctor here. Just because you went on the internet and did some Googling doesn't make you a doctor. I agree. But I'm the one living in this body. I am the one who's dealing with this problem. And I know what's working and what's not working. And you need to listen to what I'm saying, that your differential diagnosis of mental health is not the answer. I tried some of the mental medications. Didn't do anything. Just made me more sick. So it is really important to stand up for yourself. But that can be very hard, especially when I was back at the very beginning. Literally, I could slur out 2 to 4 words at a time, and I'd have to really struggle to find my next set of words. I knew here basically what I was trying to communicate, but getting them verbalized wasn't always possible, and doctors don't have a lot of time for us. I was lucky that over time I did find, I've had now 2 family doctors that listen, learn, and have been sort of champions for me. But it was the specialist in Toronto that made all the difference in the world for me. Dr. Rena Bray was amazing, because I had a family doctor who completely dismissed me and said, I will fill in this disability forms for you to get a pension, but I can write it for every other nurse at my station at my front desk. So I can do it. But she didn't fill it in properly. She dismissed everything that I said. And when I showed it to the specialist, she looked at it and she was so angry. She filled in the form, which is something she does not do. But she filled in my form and I got approved on the first try. But there are many people who are suffering that it may take 2, 3, or 4 tries to get accepted, to prove that there is something wrong, that you're not just malingering.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. I've
That
ended
that
up
is
writing a lot of songs around that.
yeah, that is one of the things that Nancy and I talked about. The other speaker who was talking about brain aneurysm is that we need to truly and honestly be our best advocates, because they truly dismiss us. And even though she was in the medical field, even though her husband, her ex-husband now, was a doctor, she felt the same way, that she was getting dismissed. And she said she was able to pull the card of, my husband is a doctor, and got more help. But she said, what about the people who can't? Right? And so when she was telling me, like, you need to stand up for, you need to say, this is what's happening. And I said, no, I'm going to, because of the fact that I was having these bad headaches. And I told them that I really think you need to look at my brain. And they said, with your age, you had migraines before, you had vertigo. It's probably the same thing. And I said, no, because I know what vertigo feels like and I know what a migraine feels like. This doesn't feel like that. And I know how much work I can do. I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I go to work full time. I know that I can come home and I can do the things that I do. Right now, it's really looking foggy. Like, I am missing things. There's things that I miss that I should not be missing. And I said, that is not me. So I really, really think you should check my brain. They didn't want to do it. The only reason why I got a MRI for my brain is because they were going to do an MRI on my hip replacement because that was having issues. And I said, you know what? I know how long it takes to get in a room. Since you're doing the MRI on my leg, do one on my brain. I'm right there. I'm in that tube, right? Isn't it the same thing? So they agreed to do the MRI on the brain. That's when they found that I had 4 strokes, right? They saw I didn't know that strokes leaves marks on your brains, but it does. So 3 white spots and a darker brain bleed. That brain bleed got them to look at it like, wait a moment, something is wrong with your brain. Something's happening. We better go in, take a deeper look at it, and do a CT scan, which is the dye. And that's when they found the aneurysm. And I'm like, if I didn't ask for one thing, they wouldn't have found the other thing. That if they didn't find that, it could have killed me. Right? Like, guys. So I know that God has been on my side all of the way. And when they said, oh, it's at 6 millimeters right now and it's small enough for us to wait, I said, are you kidding? I said, you guys didn't know about it before. Yeah. No, you need to go and make sure that it's okay, because they said they can go in and do the angio. And I said, then that is what you're going to do. You're going to look at it because I don't think God is going to walk me all this way for you to say, no, we're going to wait 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why I'm here now. There's a reason why all this stuff happened up until now. So go and look at it. Make sure that everything is fine from the inside. So yeah, we do.
I
We truly have
100%
to
agree.
be.
It's hard to advocate for yourself, especially when you're not feeling well. When in doubt, bring somebody along because
Yeah.
there will be times where you're not comfortable. Bring sort of that mama bear person that you trust with you. I know at the beginning, without the help of some of my church friends, I would not have been able to express myself well enough to get the help because I was just simply too weak. But they're also witnesses. So if there are any issues, you can simply say, we both heard you say
Yeah.
XYZ, And yeah, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on that because it is frustrating for so many of us, but it is not my specialty.
Yeah. But, I totally understand. It's just that we should speak up. And I like that you said bring someone else with you because I'm bad about that. I go by myself a lot. So thank you for that. But I truly do want to hear more about your grace method because I feel that not only that it helped you at the time you were going through everything. I don't want to be selfish, but I think it's going to help me right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Okay, so there are 5 steps in grace. I can show it through all my fingers here. Grace stands for G, grieve what was lost. So what have you lost that you can think of right now when it comes to this aneurysm? What have you lost?
Peace, I think that's what it is because I feel like I don't know what's inside. I don't know what's going to happen, so it's that peace.
So you lost peace? Do you still trust your body?
I trust God, but
One of the
to
things I
trust my
learned,
own body, I'm like,
yeah,
right? Like, you're doing something I don't want you to be doing.
yeah. And that is still a loss. We go through life, so many people, we go through life and where everything seems to be going. I mean, one of my friends at school, he was maybe 13, 14, 15, somewhere in that range. And his dad, who was the most fit person that we knew in our town, dropped dead of a heart attack, gone in an instant, like a widowmaker. Like, I woke up, I went to bed what I thought was healthy. and I woke up with a virus that stole everything. So we've lost trust in our bodies. So whether you're going through a divorce, you've lost trust in a person. Whether you have lost a job, maybe you've lost trust in your own confidence or in your own skills. So we have to go through a process of grieving what was lost. And part of the healing process is writing those things down. What have I lost? What am I grieving right now? Where do I need to spend a little bit of time to process the emotions? How am I going to think of myself now? How can I start repairing, not burying, not covering, not working so hard I don't have to think about it? So many of us try to stuff those feelings down. I have to act brave for everybody else. That's hiding our feelings. We need to actually go through that grieving process to try to heal and understand. And it helps us sort of ride the waves. Do you understand what I mean by riding the waves of grief?
Yes.
Because when
I
it
live in
first
Hawaii, so
happens,
I know what waves are, but I get it.
yeah, when we first go through something, it's like a big tsunami comes through and just throws us into a complete topsy-turvy situation. And if you think about a pet that you've lost or a family member you've lost, how you think of that, you see an object and all of a sudden a wave comes and knocks you over. If you've got an ex and you see their photo or you see them get an accolade in a newspaper and you feel this wave coming over you. Grieving is learning how to recognize where the feeling is coming from. Are they real? How can I accept them? Can I love them? Can I release them? Right? So we have to go through this process so that we can rebuild and move forward. The R stands for reframe with gratitude. When I was in AA, there was this stupid sign in the AA room and it said, attitude of gratitude. And I would look at that thing and just growl because I didn't feel like I had anything to be thankful for at all. I was sick. I couldn't drink. I wasn't in the tropics. I wasn't scuba diving. I could barely speak. I was stuck in bed. I was, until I was able to sort of turn the corner, turn the key, and I would recognize I have a soft bed to lie on. I have a roof over my head. I have food in front of me that I can eat. I can go to the tap and turn on the water. And by learning slowly to, whether you do it mentally or physically, writing something down saying, I see that this is something to be thankful for. I am thankful for God. I am thankful for my church. I am thankful for my wheelchairs, which I initially resented. I am thankful for the ability to speak again. I am thankful for the ability to sing, to be able to write books, to be able to stand on stages and impact the lives of other people who are going through this. So yeah, I had to learn how to be grateful. And it took a long time. It took several years. But I remember one day especially. I was looking out my back door and there is a beautiful maple tree just off to the side. And I let my cat off on her leash because she used to love to go out and flop in the sun. I couldn't look to the right because it was nothing but bright sunshine and it hurt, physically hurt to look that direction. Then I just happened to look to the left, to the maple tree, and it was summer, and the summer wind was blowing. And underneath the maple tree was this beautiful shadow, and the sunbeams were just creating a dappled, dancing sunlight at the base of the tree. And I sat there and looked at that shade and shadow dancing, and I thought to myself, I am finally there. because I know that months previous to that or years previous to that, I would not have taken the time to notice such a simple beauty, that it was something that I could appreciate and enjoy just for the fact that it was there. And I had to use that again when my father was passed. We had 2 funerals to get through, the one local to where he's been living for the past few years, and then back home where I grew up. And people don't think about it when they're so focused on what's going bad, they don't see the small joys. They don't see the beautiful flowers in the hospital that are meant for somebody else, but they're still there and they're still beautiful. They may not be willing to accept a hug because they're not ready, but by allowing love to come in and be accepted, that is a joy that can make those really bad days survivable, right? A meal without feeling guilty that the other person or whatever the situation is, isn't getting to enjoy. I can sit and appreciate a chocolate bar if that's what I needed to go to. There are so many different things that gratitude can just bring that roller coaster moment back into a tolerable level. A is act fearlessly. Because I was brought back to nothing, to zero, I had to try everything. I had to work on my speech. I had to find ways to communicate with people. I was lucky enough to reconnect with my faith. I had to join AA in order to get sober. I had to face so many fears. I had to move away from a partner that I cared for, but it wasn't a safe situation. I had to move into a women's shelter. And after 2-3 months, you get kicked out. I had nowhere to go. So when my church talked to the seniors home where I had been volunteering and singing in a choir and working in their craft room, all of a sudden I already had some connections there, and they went, well, she can come live with us until she can get into housing. Yes, I had to pay rent and all that sort of stuff, but they allowed this 40-year-old to live with the 85 plussers. I mean, I had a guy that was 104 years old, because I would go around the lunchroom just spreading joy, because a lot of them didn't get visitors, and I would just hug people. This was pre-COVID, obviously. And all of a sudden I leaned over to hug this elderly lady, and this guy who was 104 years old pinched my bum. You don't get experiences like that normally. And we all had a very good laugh. It was incorrect, but oh my God, at 104, you can get away with it. But it's one of those things that all of these different opportunities happened because I'm willing to do stuff when I'm afraid. My Disabilities Unleashed show came around because I learned that in Canada, July, and the US, that July is Disability Pride Month, as in I'm not ashamed to be disabled. But it was new to Canada. It only came into existence in 2023. And I went online and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get to speak. I'm going to get to maybe volunteer at the very least, or see people that are part of my community. And I found nothing, not a single opportunity. And I made a promise on CBC radio when I was talking about Disability Pride Month. And I said, if nobody else is going to do something about it, I will. And through the grapevine, people heard about what I'd planned, and a lady approached me and said, would you like to do this show in December of that same year? In December? We'll pay for it. And after I picked my jaw up off the ground, I said, I've never run anything like this. She goes, that's fine. We'll help. And we put on the first Disability Unleashed show. And last July, we put on a second one. So it's only by being willing to, what I call, become willing to fearlessly fail, to look stupid, to look imperfect, to try the things that scare you or that are different. I didn't know what I could do in my disabled state. But I saw, for example, people in the AA room giving really good speeches. And I saw other ones giving really bad speeches. So I decided that I was going to be a speaker because I'd been teaching my entire life. I taught people how to do first aid, CPR, lifeguarding. I taught women how to drive 18-wheelers. And I'd been a master scuba instructor for years. I knew how to teach. So that meant I could speak, right? And so I joined Toastmasters and I spent a lot of time building my skills up to become a good speaker. But I didn't know whether they were going to accept me with my challenge with slurring words, with being in a wheelchair. They had to make accommodations for me. They got rid of the clapping every time somebody did something good. They changed it to jazz hands so as not to cause me pain. But I had to become willing to fearlessly fail. And C is connect with community. Every time I go out and try something new, I meet new people, I make new connections, I make new friends, and the AA community kept me sober. My church brought me back my faith and supported me. I'm in numerous choirs. Each one is special and different. And again, just gives me that boost, that energy, that joy during the week. I've helped raise thousands of dollars because I was part of a community of people that sang in a mass choir to help build a low-income housing for an apartment complex for seniors. It's just when we go out, when we push ourselves, and even if that's just online, because that's how I started, was just online, you can create community. You can create a sense of being again. And E is embrace those new passions and purpose. So I embraced my ability to speak. I embraced making jewelry and was selling it for a while. I embraced the knowledge that I had to bring that knowledge out into the world. Did I know how to create a ClickFunnels? No. Do I know how? Not really. Did I know how to write a speech that wasn't just all trauma dumping? Nope. If you go back and look at some of my original videos, they're not very good. And that's okay. I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to be willing to push past that fear. I am dyslexic. I am AD, and I am terrified of writing. And now I'm a #1 international best-selling author. I co-authored a book because I wasn't ready to do one all on my own. I am working on my own. But I had to try something that was a little bit smaller. And that's okay.
And it's so good. You know, like everything you said through all of the grace just tells me that there's so much in grace, you know, and the grace that we have. I mean, we have to have, like you said, not just grace that God gives, but the grace that we have on ourselves, being
Yes.
kind, being gentle on ourselves, you know, like how I was last night. And I'm like yelling at God, telling him, no, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm really good. You know, it is well with my soul. I got it 3 times. God, I got it. But really, what was he saying? Is it really, is it really well with your soul right now? You know, being like, okay, no, it's okay to ask for help, right? That's grace. It's okay to say, you know what, can you come with me to the doctor? Because I just don't have the words, or I don't have the strength right now. Because that's grace.
That is grace. And that is also the gift of asking for help.
Yeah.
That is
Community.
a different one. But in synopsis, how do you feel when somebody asks you for help? How do you feel when
Yeah.
somebody
See,
turns to you in love and trust and says, can you help me?
right? Because that's true. I am always there. I love to help someone else. I'm like, what do you need? And
Exactly.
I will put time aside. I'd be like, let me see. I'll do what I can to help you. But then when it flips around, I'm like, well, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be, you know.
We are trained from childhood, whether it's just our generation. I don't think it is, but we are trained from childhood. Don't be a burden. Don't share because people don't want to know. Never ask me, how are you doing? If you don't want to know, because I am fully open and honest about what's going on in my life. And I will tell you exactly what's going on. And people are like, okay. The people that know me just expect it, but those who don't is like, surprise. And I'm okay with it, you know. I I will edit some things, but it is really important for us to understand that we are stealing from them the joy of being recognized as somebody that is loved and trusted. We are stealing from them that opportunity for them to express their love and support. We're stealing moments that you may never get back because that will be time spent together. What happens if the next day they're in something happens and they're not with us anymore? How much time would you mourn? I could have spent an hour, whatever, with this person. Because we never know when we are going to be taken from this existence, we need to treasure those moments. And sadly, urgency is taken away from us. Urgency, like when that life-changing incident happened. And we tell everybody, oh, make sure that you're appreciating each and every day. A couple hours later, a couple of days later, that urgency disappears. We don't necessarily appreciate things as much as we should or could. I don't like to use the word should.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we get to treasure moments. And if that's spending time with a person at a doctor's office, just being the support teddy bear or the hand holder or the mama bear who goes, you're not listening to her, whatever it is, those are moments that we can give to other people if we are willing to be vulnerable. And that can be hard.
I like that, when you say stealing it from them. Because, yeah, I would feel bad if somebody didn't ask me for help. So why don't I feel the same way about doing it to someone else, right? You have to be that mirror, be that reflection. If you expect that from someone else, you have to expect that for yourself too. But to use those words, that sits different now. That is
Good.
true. That's true. Thank you for that. Now I have to think better, right? And so does everyone else hearing this. So it's a good thing that you said
Take
it.
time and practice.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all of this. This is so important. One question. If someone 20 years from now says, CJ Janzen changed my life because, what do you hope they would say? What would finish that sentence?
That's tough because she cared, because she was willing to listen.
I can say, because you are willing to say what you feel, because you said everything right now, because you lived it, because I'm going to cry. But yeah, that's the truth, because your authenticity just stands out. Like you said, if somebody's going to ask you, how are you? You're going to tell them. And you did just that right now. Somebody says, CJ changed my life. It's going to be because she said exactly what she wanted to say. And it is the truth. So, sorry for the cry. Sorry for the tears. Okay, guys, we should never apologize for our tears, all right? It's a good thing.
Yes,
But
they
thank
are.
you.
They are there for healing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your beautiful voice. Your singing is amazing.
Shall we finish with a little snippet of song?
Please, please do.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sun that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now was blind, but now I see through grace.
Thank you so much. When I have to share that was my grandma's song. And like I said, God works in ways that we don't even know because you didn't know. You didn't know that. That was one song that I had a hard time singing because my grandma always sang that and sang it at her funeral. But so good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. This podcast right now has been so good, so healing. And CJ, you've done your job with grace. I thank you. There's
Thank
not
you for
enough
having me.
words, but I don't think we need it right now. You're amazing. Thank you, everyone. And until next time, I'm Michelle Ivalorosa Kawano, and this is the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. And this is the wonderful CJ Janzen. How can they keep up with you, keep in touch with you, give them something that they can keep connected with you?
They can just Google my name, CJ Janzen, Janzen, or Zen in the US. On Instagram, it's at CJ_Janzen, but I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all of the socials. And I do my best to be fairly active, but I am sick, so I do what I can when I can.
Okay. Well, that is a blessing in itself. Thank you again, everyone. Until next time. Ahui ho.
Thank you for joining us here on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. Before leaving, please hit that subscribe button. God's blessings always and ahui ho.